Before I moved to Australia, I was convinced that I was going to hate parts of it when I visited for the first time. I never really wanted to come here, I didn't think the food would be very good, and I thought the flight would absolutely break me. And then I actually did it, and it turns out that every assumption I made about Australia was completely wrong. Not just a little bit wrong, but like embarrassingly wrong. So I'm a Brit who's actually moved here to rebuild my life, and today I'm running through every single thing Australia proved me wrong about. Grab a cuppa, let's get into it. And hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British musician and actor, documenting my journey of rebuilding life in gorgeous Australia. So, number one, the flight wasn't the ordeal I built it up to be. I pictured myself crawling through the layover airport like an absolute zombie. I thought on the flight, my legs are just gonna ache. I'm gonna be jabbed in the sides in economy seats. I can't afford anything more than that. And I thought the food was gonna be horrible and I'm just gonna get migraine after migraine. But it actually turned out that while long haul in the name is long, it's actually not as painful as you think it is in your head. It moves a lot faster than you realize. Honestly, most of the boring time is spent when you're actually on the ground. When you're up in the air flying, you actually feel like you're moving forward. For anyone who doesn't know, the flight from London to Brisbane with the layover, about 24 hours. Just a few quick things. Unless you're a great sleeper, the sleep is going to be rough. You probably won't get much of it. And even when you do, it'll probably be interrupted by, someone going to the toilet, maybe someone like accidentally bumping into you. Sometimes we skip a meal when we know that's when we want to sleep to, adjust to the new time zone. We'll take electrolytes to keep us hydrated. Trust me, that's the biggest one here. And have electrolytes, I would say every 4 to 6 hours on the flight. Comment below if you want a whole video on long haul travel tips. But what I'm trying to say is that the long haul flight isn't as bad as you think it's gonna be. And I thought the flight was gonna be one of the worst things, and actually, it was all right. And if you're enjoying this, consider hitting that like button. It really helps me to keep these videos coming. But anyway, the flight wasn't the problem. What happened after was what nearly got to me, and that was number two. The heat hits different in Australia. I just spent 2 years living in Japan. And if you've ever lived around, anywhere between Osaka and Tokyo in Japan, you know that summers there are brutal and they last 9 months. No one ever talks about the heat in Japan. Anyway, I thought I was pretty good at heat and humidity, and then I came to Brisbane, and oh my word, the humidity and the heat. Oh, I remember getting off the plane, and I think it was nighttime, so I expected it to be cool, and it was boiling, and I was like, this is bizarre. So I knew Australia was going to be hot. I just didn't know it was going to be this hot. And also, I know there's a lot of very lucky people in Australia living in places like, Victoria and Tasmania, where it gets pretty chilly. I didn't realize where I was living, Brisbane, was going to be like this, but it's good fun. And I very quickly realized why every Queenslander home has a ceiling fan in almost every room. Lots of people have air conditioning. People make use of the solar panels because of the amount of sunshine you get, and also then you can use all the solar energy to offset your electricity bill. Yeah, really good system. So do prepare yourself for it, especially if you're visiting from a cold country. It's going to be hard. Anyway, this next one, this is so important. Sunscreen on a cloudy day. Apparently this is a non-negotiable. I say apparently, I've lived it. It is a non-negotiable. I always talk about how the UV levels are so high in Australia. Australia has some of the highest counts of melanoma. You get it. I'm sure we all understand that UV, too much of it is bad for our skin. We got to wear sunscreen. But as a Brit who does not get brought up with, proper sun safety, we genuinely believe deep into our hearts that when it's cloudy, you don't need sunscreen, nothing's going to touch you. And the truth is, in the UK, when it's cloudy, the UV is either UV level 0 or 1. It hardly does any damage. In Australia, it can be a UV 10 and look completely cloudy, not even be glary, and it will burn you to a crisp. So my first ever time visiting Australia, catching up with Aussie mates, and they took us paddleboarding on the Gold Coast. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. It's a really cloudy day. They weren't putting sunscreen on. I thought, yeah, I won't put sunscreen on. We're having a great time. And then driving home that night, and I'm like, car seatbelt on. I'm like, oh, it's a bit stingy. Get home, take my top off. I literally look like a tomato. I am burnt to the crisp. Have you ever been so burnt when your shoulders are actually shiny? And I learned from that day onwards, always wear sunscreen. But this next one It lasted for a couple of weeks, and that is, the jet lag is harder than anything I'd experienced before. I had visited America before from the UK, and one of the furthest flights I'd ever done was the flight from London to California. I remember having jet lag for the first couple of days, but then I quickly got over it, especially being a child, it was quite easy. But flying from the UK to Australia, the jet lag that hit me for the next 2 weeks was horrendous. I was constantly waking up at 5 a.m. and being someone who's completely naive and not having ever really experienced anything like this before, I would sort of wake up and go on my phone and maybe go for a run and stuff. I didn't realize how much, damage that was doing to my sleep. And then I would be so tired by 3 p.m. and Maddie would be like, don't have a nap, Sam, don't do it. And I was like, don't worry, I won't. And I'd quietly excuse myself from the family. I thought, I'll just have a quick 10-minute nap, I'll be fine. And then I wake up and it's nighttime and the time's 9 p.m. and I know I've just screwed myself over. Also, with the jet lag, if you've got good people in your life, they'll try and keep you awake in the day. They'll be like, mate, wake up, here, have a coffee, let's go out and do something, get some fresh air. I mean, you can do the Die Hard thing where you walk around with no shoes and socks on. I find that really helps, actually. But there is something so intensely uncomfortable by being deeply jet lagged, deeply sleep deprived, and then someone waking you up and trying to keep you awake. You get dizzy, you start feeling nauseous, it makes you really grumpy, and you just feel like you're in some weird dream state. And honestly, these are the things nobody tells you before even visiting Australia, let alone moving here. So if you want more tips like this on how to rebuild your life in this gorgeous country like I did, you can sign up to my free weekly newsletter by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the top of the description below. And when you do, you also get my free Move to Australia guide, which I think is quite helpful. But once the jet lag wears off, if you're here for a long time, you realize that Australia is very easy to come to as a tourist, and it's very welcoming and it's very open. But as kind of resident or someone, on a working holiday visa, you realize that the admin side is actually very, very difficult. There is endless sunshine here. So many people open to making new friends and welcoming you into their home. There is so much to do and see. But doing the boring stuff like opening a bank account, applying for that next stage of your visa, finding a house, buying a car, all of these things, I've realized it's really quite difficult in Australia. There's a little bit of gatekeeping, around each corner. You realize to do one thing, you then have to do 5 more, have to go get this form and go to that place and go sign this in that other location. The paradise of Australia, it doesn't disappear, but it stops being enough on its own because you have to do all these other things. Anyway, the next thing I was so wrong about is that I'd written off Aussie food in my head. The only plate of Aussie cuisine I'd ever had before moving here was a chicken palmy made by an Aussie guy in Shinsaibashi in Osaka City in Japan. But anyway, I'd never really heard of anyone talk about Australian cuisine. Don't know if I just needed to get out more. So I was like, is it gonna be a bit average? And I was so wrong. Well, the food isn't as good as my mum's roast dinner, but I legally have to say that, otherwise I'm getting in a lot of trouble, obviously. My wife Maddie took me to a Westfield shopping centre on one of my first days in Brisbane. Some of you are probably laughing right now. You're probably thinking, what, a shopping centre? Oh yeah, that's the pinnacle of cuisine. Trust me, if you've never been to one, there are restaurants and food vendors from all over the world. It's given me the opportunity to try foods and dishes I'd never tried before, especially in 8th Street, Westfield, Mount Gravatt. They've got all these different Asian food vendors, and I got to try some amazing stuff. And she also took me to Boost, which is like an Australian staple. They're made with all 5 of your 5 a day. They're delicious, and they'll only cost you like a £5 in UK money. I do think that the UK, on convenient, healthy food, they put a premium price tag on it. Anyway, the food wasn't the biggest surprise, the people were, because Aussies made me feel like I belonged here way before I earned it. Now, I had heard the cliche of Aussies being chill, and yeah, pretty chill, but I didn't realise that as soon as people clock your accent, they realise you're not from here. They start handing you out tips and welcoming you into their home and being really friendly. Also, if you're a foreigner, expect everyone to make the drop bear joke. They'll be like, mate, watch out for drop bears. And you just play along with it. I'm comparing that to when I lived in Japan and felt like a foreigner most of the time. Even in the UK, I've noticed it takes a little bit longer to fit into the UK. British people won't make the same amount of effort that an Aussie would, in my personal opinion. Whereas in Australia, they're you are our mate from day one. And there is something very special about that, and it takes a very special kind of people, and that is Australians. But that warmth, it extends much further than I thought it would, and that goes into people's homes here, because Aussies actually mean it when they tell you to make yourself at home. As a Brit, I'm guilty of this, and I know my family and friends back in the UK are too. We will say things we don't necessarily mean just to appear polite. For example, when we offer people a cup of tea, we often don't really want to make you a cup of tea. We're just saying it to be polite. When you tell people make yourself at home, you wouldn't really expect them to like kick the shoes off and put their feet on your sofa. You'd then be a bit like, whoa, this sounds bad, doesn't it? And when you go into someone's home in the UK, you do kind of wait for them to, you know, tell you that you can like have a seat. You do wait for them to like offer you a drink and food. And even then you might say no because you don't want to come across as rude or something like that. It's very silly. Whereas you walk into an Aussie home and it's immediately like, come on in mate, don't worry about your shoes, whatever. Like, do you want a beer? Do you want a drink? Do you want a tea? And if you're overly polite about anything, you're beating around the bush, you're being a bit British, you're being a bit like, oh no, I don't want to intrude. Oh, I don't want to cause you any hassle. Like, I don't want to create any more work for you. They'll be like, mate, stop being silly. Like you're in my home, like it's chill. There'll be Aussies who, you know, aren't very welcoming when you come into their home. There'll be Brits who are way more welcoming than anyone you've ever met when you come into their home. This is just a generalization. But typically I've found that when Brits say make yourself at home, it's more of a politeness thing. And when Aussies say it, they really do mean it. But having misconceptions about Australia before you move here is one thing, but actually getting stuff wrong here is another, and I got a lot wrong in my first year in Australia. So go watch this video here where I tell you all about it. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching to the end. Bye.